Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am Amanda Farmer and we're going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page. We're also heading out to LinkedIn and out to YouTube today. How are you all doing this Friday? This is your wrap up of the week in Strata. It's wonderful to be here with you to share what's hot, what's topical this week, what I have been working on as a strata lawyer serving strata owners, apartment owners. If you're coming on in and joining me live, I'd love for you to say hello here in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. I'd love to see you. Let me know that you are here. If you're catching the replay, give me a hello as well. Let me know what you're up to. I can see many of you there coming in live. Good to have you here with me. Those of you who are parents of school-aged children are probably very well aware that school holidays has just kicked off this afternoon. I have a rather excited 9-year-old in the room just on the other side of this wall, still chatting to his friends. They chat to their friends all day at school and then they come home and then they get on chat of some description and just keep talking. Bizarre. So exciting times ahead for school holidays. If you're looking forward to that, let me know. A few of you coming in and saying hi. Donna Carroll is here, our podcast superstar. I hope she doesn't mind me outing her. Hey, Donna, how are you? So glad that you are here. We are definitely going to chat about your podcast episode, which so many people have enjoyed this week. Good to see you. Jane is here saying, hello, Amanda. Cool and overcast here in the Yass Canberra area. Perfect for putting up a new dog run. Cool. What kind of dogs you got there, Jane? A few by the sounds of it, maybe. Thank you very much for joining us. Petra is here saying good afternoon, Amanda. Good afternoon to you, Petra. Elizabeth is joining us from LinkedIn. Hello there. Hello there to you, Elizabeth. Now, I am looking forward to a relaxing evening tonight. I've had a pretty full-on week. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I have been working on this week as we get into our discussion about how we place motions on a general meeting agenda. I have been deep in the law on that topic this week, so I thought I would bring you some of those insights. Having a relaxing night after a big week because I'll be traveling tomorrow. My family's going to be jumping in the cars, actually, disgracefully, cars to head to Sydney for the school holidays to spend some time with some friends, some family, and also for me to do some client meetings next week in my Sydney office. Now that we have 2 dogs and a growing young man, we actually do take 2 cars when we travel to Sydney. My husband often leaves us there and comes back for work while I stay and catch up on some work. And we say to our little boy, Callum, who's 9, we say, which car would you like to go in? Dad's car or mum's car? And as I said, we have 2 dogs and Callum generally says, which car is Barnaby going in? Barnaby's our youngest dog, 12 months old, and Barnaby gets car sick. So Callum tends to choose the car that Barnaby is not in. And Barnaby's usually in my car. So yes, mum deals with the car sick dog. I'm not sure if any of you have animals that get car sick while you're traveling. It's not a nice experience. You tend to learn not to feed them the night before or the morning of. And Callum says, Mum, I like being in your car. You've got better music, but you have Barnaby. So that's a no. That's a no on the traveling with the car sick dog. So that's going to be my day tomorrow morning as we head to Sydney. Jane's letting me know that she has a Scottish deerhound and a miniature dachshund. Excellent. I'm sure they'll enjoy their new dog run that you're building there, Jane. Thank you for sharing. Rhino is saying wet from Tweed Heads. Hi, Amanda. Yeah, there's a bit of rain around at the moment. We've had a beautiful day here in Mudgee, I'm sorry to say. It's been gorgeous weather. Sean is saying hello. Great to see so many of you here live with me on a Friday afternoon. We had a rollicking rollicking good time last Friday with my special guest, Michael Tees, who loved that chat. You were all letting us know as we were working our way through some important issues last Friday how much you enjoyed Michael's company. If you haven't caught the chat from last week or caught the replay, you can definitely do that here on the page. It is down below, and Rochelle and Christina, I believe, have a link for you that they're just popping in the comments now, so you can come back and check that out. Michael was handing out some tough love for our owners, our Strata owners, our committee members. He was giving us the ins and outs of some new legislation that is proposed for New South Wales, the Building Enforcement Powers Bill, which is currently open for consultation. So you do have the opportunity to have a say on that before it hits our Parliament. And that legislation contains provisions that will allow our building commissioner, New South Wales police officers, any other authorised officers to enter our residential strata buildings to inspect, investigate, issue orders, issue penalties where our common property is not being properly repaired and maintained. Quite extraordinary powers. Some have described those powers as draconian. There's a little bit of media coming out about that now, and some owners and some strata managers I can see starting to realize the potential impact of these powers. And I said Michael handed out some tough love. He was essentially saying, hey, it's time. It's time for this kind of legislation. We have to be doing something about the apparent inability of some of our buildings to make decisions that are in the best interests of owners and to understand how important their legal obligation to properly maintain and repair their common property actually is. So go ahead and check out that chat. We are going to send out an edited version of it on the podcast probably next week, just to make sure we reach as many people as possible with that important information. So many of you commented on the episode. Many of you have commented over on Michael's LinkedIn page as well. I think we've had about 3 times the normal number of views or the average number of views on that episode, on that chat. So it just goes to show how engaging that was, how important the information was. And thank you to many of you who have shared that chat through your various channels. I received, I think it was the evening, last Friday evening, a couple of hours after live, I received an email from an experienced committee chair. This is somebody who regularly tunes in to Friday Live, either here in person or catches the replay. And this person is also a member of our online community. And I have been given permission to let you know some of the content of the email that was sent to me. It was sent to me by Mr. B. We're going to call him Mr. B. He knows who he is. And he sent me an email on Friday afternoon after the chat with Michael, which he had tuned into. And he said to me, Amanda, a quick thank you. And thank you to Mr. Michael Tees for what I would rate as your best Friday afternoon chat in my experience. And Mr. B was not the only one to say that. And he went on to say that when he became the chair of his committee, he recalled a conversation with the previous chairperson who said to him these words: "We went 16 years without a levy increase." And Mr. B said, the surprising thing to me was that this statement was given with pride, as if it was something to be admired. And it turned out that this chairperson, who I believe was the first chairperson in the community, this chairperson had believed that the goal of having the lowest strata fees in the area was a laudable goal, and it was something to aspire to. And Mr. B said to me, Amanda, this chair said about infecting the minds of all who attended AGMs with that lofty ambition. And if you tuned in to the chat with Michael, you will understand what it was that sparked this email from Mr. B. Michael was talking about the fact that so many buildings have it backwards. They want to keep levies low, and they think that keeping levies low is a good thing. There is absolutely no reason why your levies should get lower each year. They should actually, as everything else does in our world, be increasing as the cost of repair and maintenance work, the cost of rectifying dilapidating buildings increases. Now, Mr. B's email went on to say that whilst his current Strata piggy bank, their current piggy bank is nowhere near as plump and well-fed as it should be, Mr. B has managed to persuade his owners corporation, his fellow owners, to approve annual levy increases. There have been some special levies that the building has had to have. And Mr. B said that the JOLT method that Mr. T's was espousing deserves a loud cheer, because for too long, owners corporations seem to have had the luxury of regarding their strata communities, their investments, as toys or as hobby businesses. And Mr. B says they have been applying standards of amateurism and reality denial that they would never accept in other aspects of business dealings, from a medical professional, for example, from a lawyer, or even from a local cafe owner. And Mr. B says that he employs and he strongly recommends plain talking. And he has repeatedly told his owners corporation to view their strata community as a business. And he's often caught saying, "This is not a Lamington Drive. This is not a Lamington Drive, people. This is not a jam store. We are not at a school fete." No nonsense talk, as Michael Tees was giving last week, is what is needed. Feeble excuses need to go, and owners corporations need to ditch this obsession with minimizing or eliminating expenditure. Mr. B has said that he has had to ask his owners corporation to face some uncomfortable truths, to admit to themselves that money and the lack of agreement to spend money was actually the root cause of problems in the building, and to reflect more deeply on why it might be beneficial to be proactive on this issue and not wait until you get an NCAT application or a tribunal order or even a council order to upgrade fire safety, for example. So Mr. B said thank you to Michael Tees and to myself for the session last week, and that it will be very interesting, he thinks, to see where the New South Wales legislation goes. So if you're just coming on in and you've been hearing me talk about last week's chat with Michael Tees, I've just been sharing the content of an email that I received from a viewer, from a member in our online community, an experienced chairperson, Mr. B, and I thought he so clearly articulated some of those really important takeaways from last week's chat. So thank you, Mr. B, for giving us permission to share that. And I'm seeing some more hellos as well as some comments coming on in supporting, I think, what Mr. B has shared. I'll just head back and say some hellos here. Daryl has come on in. Great to see you, Daryl. Welcome, welcome. And F is here from Sunny Sawtell. Awesome. Great to see you, F. Kathy is here saying it's cold and wet in Sydney. Yes, I think that is what I'm in for the next week or so as I join you there. Maureen saying hi. Great to see you, Maureen. And here we have some comments on last week's episode and last week's chat, actually. We've been having some great chats every week that it's like it's the podcast now, just a regular Friday episode. Daryl is saying, not an uncommon event to see an owners corporation reduce their proposed budget by over 50%, which includes completely removing their capital works budget. Yep, Daryl, this is something that is close to my heart at the moment as I look over a budget for my own building for an AGM that is coming up in a few weeks' time. And as a committee member, I am looking closely at that budget with my fellow committee members, and we're looking at our Capital Works Fund, and we're looking at what is coming up over the next 5 years. We're looking at our 10-year Capital Works Fund plan and what we should have, what the balance of the Capital Works Fund should be as at the end of next financial year, and looking at the additional levies that we may need to raise in order to meet that commitment. Because when you adopt a capital works fund plan, that is a commitment, I believe, that you are making as a committee, as an owners corporation, to your owners to stick to that plan. We do have, I think, a gaping hole in our New South Wales legislation that requires us to prepare a 10-year plan, but doesn't require us to comply with that plan. But I think if you're a committee member acting with due diligence, acting in the best interests of your owners corporation, then it's incumbent on you. If that plan's been prepared and you believe that it's accurate, your owners have adopted it, it's incumbent on you to be proposing budgets that are in line with that plan. Of course, you're a lone committee member, you go to the general meeting, every owner has a vote. Everyone who's present and eligible will have their say on whether they want to adopt that budget or not. And I know that that's where some well-meaning committee members, some well-meaning owners, strata managers included, where you're making these recommendations, you hit a roadblock, you hit a brick wall where owners say, absolutely not, I don't want levies to go up. I actually want levies to go down. They've been expensive for too long. And Daryl's saying, not long after that, it's the age-old conversation of, I want something fixed. Where has all our money gone? Yes, I didn't refer to that part of Mr. B's email, but that was in there too, Daryl. Isn't it funny that when somebody wants something fixed at their lot or something that affects them, then the money is expected to be spent without any fuss? Jane is saying, I agree, not planning your levies properly or maintaining buildings can be extremely costly in the long run. We are trying to deal with a building that has been neglected for decades. So far, the investigations have cost us tens of thousands and we haven't actually fixed anything yet. Yeah, it's really tough there, Jane. Oh, excuse me while I just pinch my microphone. I've just lost the top off it, so I hope you can still hear me. A bit of a different setup here today, so if there's any audio or indeed video problems, do let me know. Hope I'm still coming through loud and clear, and I hope the microphone doesn't disappear. Dilshani is saying, hey, great to see you, Dilshani. Thank you for joining us. And Rochelle is just giving me the okay on the microphone, which is great. Alan is here saying, there was one building I used to manage that an owner would always comment, before the AGM starts, I just want to say that there will be no increase in the levies. Yeah. Does everybody, is that what's expected? That everybody then cheers? We need to change that. We need to change that mentality. Absolutely. Okay, we're just going to do this. Not a good look, but that's what's happening. Thank you, Alan, for sharing that. That won't be, hopefully, what I will be saying as I welcome those to my own AGM next month. Helena is saying, sometimes the owners do not want the levies increase. Just recently, it took over an hour to convince the owners that an increase was very necessary. Yeah. I think those who are here, who are tuning in, who are tuning into the podcast Friday Live, who are members of our online community, you are those who know this stuff. You understand the value of investing in your buildings, of preparing for the future. I'm loving these comments here that just tell me that the people that we have here today who are tuning in are on the right track. So thank you for sharing. And Shana is here saying hi from Coffs Harbour. Great to see you all. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to pull up another comment, I think, from Colin before we move on. The hidden issue is the AFSS, as this is driving costs in compliance and often out of sync with budgets. Yes, so many people have been hit with unexpected costs for getting their annual fire safety statements signed off within the last 12 months. And that's because, as I understand it, of all the changes with the accreditation system for our fire safety practitioners. The standards were dramatically increased. We've talked about that on the podcast. We've talked about it here on live. And I'm hearing again and again, it's been in our member forum lately. Amanda, we had our inspector come through, our fire safety practitioner, and we've got to do all this work that apparently was fine last year. Didn't need to do that last year, but now we need to do it, and it's costing us 10 grand, and we didn't budget for that. So it's happened in my building, definitely. I know how you feel there, Colin, and I think that's right. I think the other thing that was raised last week as part of our chat with Michael was the impact of the Design and Building Practitioners Act and the need to have particular certifications done when we're doing waterproofing work, and how that is not just slowing things down, but increasing costs as well. So everybody's budgets have definitely taken a hit. Insurance premiums. Always in my building. I do a secretary's report before our AGM, and I'm always looking at why, looking at explaining, being prepared to explain why the budget's increased, why the levies might be going up, and straight away I look at the insurance premium, and guaranteed that's had an uplift of 10 to 20%. And I know that's nothing compared to what some of you have experienced. So all of these things, and I think it's so important, as you have here, Colin, as I try to do, to explain to your owners, rather than at the beginning of the AGM saying, so proud and so pleased that levies have stayed the same or levies are decreasing, explaining, well, levies are going up and this is why. This is why, because we need to invest, we need to value our investment. We don't want to surprise owners with special levies down the track. We need to do this work, or this is what has had to happen within the last 12 months that we weren't prepared for. And often it's that lack of explanation, that lack of transparency. We hear that word a lot from owners. That is a big part of the problem. They don't understand where their money's going. And it just seems like the Strata Committee, that has incredibly broad powers to make decisions about how money is spent, the Strata Committee is just off spending everybody's money on who knows what. So I think if you have that transparency, if you have that regular and open communication about why your budget is the way it is and why levies are being raised in the amount that they are, that might go some of the way to easing the pain. Maureen saying, we have some owners who think the Capital Works Fund is for works in their own unit that isn't the owner's corporation responsibility. Yeah, there you go. There's that communication piece and that understanding of what it is that our levies are for, what it is that the money is going towards. And Patrina's just echoing, no trades have availability on the mid-north coast, all booked up for months ahead. Yeah, really difficult times. All right, great conversation, guys. Good to have you all here with me today. This week's podcast episode number 330. Have you had a listen? In this week's episode, Donna Carroll, a strata manager of more than 20 years experience, was responding to my controversial chat in episode number 327. That was a chat with Peter Wilson, strata manager. And if you haven't managed to catch it or you haven't heard about it, look, the episode was titled Peter Blows the Whistle on Overcharging Strata Managers. So that might give you some insight into that chat. Definitely go over and have a listen to episode number 327. I think Headley Swan was posting on my LinkedIn page yesterday, and he said he caught episode 330 with Donna, and it prompted him to go and have a listen. He thought, what is this controversy in episode 327? I'll have to go and check that out. And he did, and had some very insightful comments arising from both of those discussions. In the chat, Donna covered off why strata managers charge the way that they do, and shared her 20 years worth of experience working with owners and explaining agency agreements, explaining fixed fees, base fees, and additional fees. Donna mentioned the need for owner education, exactly what we're talking about right here, right now. Donna spoke about what she felt was the inadequate training that some strata managers are receiving. I'm not sure that that's something we have touched on before, either on the podcast or on live, the training that strata managers receive. And there have been some comments in response to that, agreeing with Donna that the game really needs to be lifted there. And Donna called for a dedicated strata commissioner and spoke about her frustration with NCAT, which is something that I'm pleased Donna raised. I hear from many people, strata managers, sometimes owners, sometimes lawyers, how confusing and confused NCAT can appear. So I'm glad that Donna was able to open that up. And if you have, as a strata manager or as an owner, had what you felt was a poor experience in NCAT, perhaps take some comfort from the fact that you are not alone, and very experienced professionals like Donna have had similarly surprising experiences. Heading over to some comments here. I'm not sure if we've got comments yet on Donna's episode. Michelle is saying, hi, I will definitely cover last week's podcast as there are residents now building who believe that we're over the top by trying to raise our levies and budget accordingly. Yeah, definitely. So do check out my chat with Michael Tees from last week's Friday Live. If you caught Donna's episode and you have enjoyed it or you've had some comment on it, do let me know here in the chat. Some of you might be catching up over the weekend. Some of you were catching up yesterday, which was supposed to be a day off, but a lot of you were emailing me. And yes, I confess, I was in my inbox as well. I know a few Strata managers. Daryl, I think, posted here on the page saying, I'm in the office getting some minutes and some agendas out while the phones are off and trying to catch up. And I think Donna herself chimed in and said, I'm here too, doing the same thing. So a catch-up day, I think, was enjoyed by a few people yesterday. I want to thank Megan Chatterton. I know, Megan, you often tune in on a Friday, so if you're here, give me a hello. Megan posted a comment under Donna's episode over on my LinkedIn profile earlier today, and I will read it out to you. Megan said, in support of Strata managers, I have had the privilege of meeting many that are incredibly dedicated and go above and beyond for their schemes, despite a high volume workload, little internal support, and a constantly changing regulatory environment. Ditto for building managers. So Megan's mentioned building managers. Important to bring building managers into the conversation. Megan says, I couldn't think of a more thankless, undervalued, or misunderstood job. And Megan says, I'm a bit cranky pants at the moment. She's a bit cranky pants, our Megan, with the poor strata literacy of some owners and their unwillingness to self-educate on their mandated requirements as a strata owner. Yes, our Department of Customer Service could do far more in this regard, but there still seems to be an entrenched culture of ignorance amongst some owners. Obviously, Megan says, not the ones who are engaging in this podcast. Thank you, Megan, for sharing those thoughts. They are valued indeed. As a key player in our strata sector, you have been for quite some time. Thank you for acknowledging the hard work that our strata managers do, and essentially echoing the comments that Michael Tees made last week. I'm not sure if you were there, Megan, if you've caught that chat, but that is exactly what he was saying. It's time to get heads out of the sand. It's time for owners to realize that when you've bought into a community living arrangement, then you have legal obligations. And if you don't like it, then perhaps strata is not for you. Shana saying Michael Tees was fabulous. Yes, I think you enjoyed that last week, Shana. So thank you, everybody, for sharing your comments on this week's episode. There's a lot over on the website under episode 330. I think we've got a link here for you if it hasn't gone in the chat already, and lots over on LinkedIn as well. So definitely check that one out. All right. Now, last week, I shared with you an article that I had come across just a few hours before we went live on Friday Live. And I picked that up from the media monitoring that Rochelle and Christina very kindly, very skillfully do for me. And they keep their eye on what's happening across the country in the strata space, and they pop it all into a spreadsheet for me. And I head over there at least once a day and check out what's going on to see if we need to be part of that conversation, if it's a conversation that I can bring to you. And last week I picked out an article that was about a relatively new building that was suffering water ingress, and there was mold all through the common areas, and some clever cookie had taken video of that and posted it on TikTok, and it had some tens of thousands of views. Now this week, perhaps along a similar but different note, I have gone over and had a look at our media monitoring spreadsheet, and I have found a story for you about doormats. So I want to talk about doormats for just a little bit. This is not the first time the doormats have come up on Friday Live. We have talked about doormats before with special guest Chris Irons, who was here on live in, I think it was December last year. Chris is now the owner of Strata Solve. He is the former Queensland Commissioner of Body Corporate and Community Management. And Chris talked about a Queensland doormat case. When he told me he was going to raise it, I thought it was a euphemism he said, I want to talk about doormats. And I thought, oh, do you mean people who get walked all over in Strata because they're not brave enough for a certificate? Because no, I meant actual doormats. No, actual doormats. It's a thing. And apparently it is, because it has come up again, I believe this time in Sydney. I'm going to share with you this article, and we've also got the link in the notes for you. I'll just make sure I share the right window here. Alrighty. This appeared, I think wherever we've got the link, it's appearing on Yahoo News as of yesterday morning. Common household item banned from apartment. Remove it. I'm hoping you're seeing that. If you're not, someone will let me know in our chat. A Sydney site has questioned building management after they received a letter of warning instructing residents to remove any doormats from outside their apartments. This notice requests that all residents keep common areas clear. This means no parcels or personal items are to be kept outside their home. Doormats have been banned in this building. Here's a photo of the building. Here's a photo of the notice that went out. Doormats, delivery boxes, parcels, toys, furniture, scooter, all other personal items have them removed, or they will be removed on your behalf. Please accept this 5 days notification. This person has shared this on Reddit. And what we have here, of course, now is another opportunity for our media to point out some of the crazy rules and the crazy goings on, as media will put it, in our strata buildings. And you can have a scroll through this article. It's everything that you might expect. Some people say this is common. Mats can cause a trip hazard. If they're in part of the corridor, which people pass to evacuate, they can prevent the fire-rated front door from closing. Interesting point. Building management is ruthless. I suppose if someone trips on them, they can sue the building. Others are saying no one walks over it as they walk through the hallway, suggesting it's not a hazard. Now, the conversation that I had with Chris Irons about doormats back in December arose out of a case that went before an adjudicator in Queensland. And in that case, which was hard fought, one owner wanted to keep a doormat, was told that was a breach of the bylaws, can't keep a doormat. And it went all the way to an adjudicator's decision. I'm not sure if lawyers were involved, but no doubt time and costs on both sides. And when I was chatting to Chris about this, and there was some media about this with some other lawyers, I think Michael Kleinschmidt, Queensland lawyer, involved in making some commentary, the conclusion seemed to be that this was all pretty petty. And do we really need to be taking up the adjudicator's time with these kinds of disputes? How is it that this dispute had gone on, I think by that stage, for a year or two about a doormat? Isn't there a way for our communities to be able to cooperatively resolve these issues? We do have Rochelle and Christina, if you want to post that, there's a link to a summary article of the Queensland case if you're interested in having a look at it. But some of the questions that were being raised are, can't we have doormats that don't infringe on fire safety, that are slip and trip resistant? Aren't there particular ways that people can have their doormat and be safe too? And isn't this just another example of rules for the sake of rules, and of committees generally being the ones who make the decision to enforce the bylaws, trying to overpower and misuse their powers just for the sake of it? So I thought I'd bring that article to our chat today to get your views. I hear what is said on both sides, and I think I can see from Fiona here. Fiona is saying this is one side. Fiona is saying WH&S reports always state to remove doormats. So that's interesting. That's one side. The other side is that we are living in our own homes and we want to live in a certain way. That is, that we want to keep our homes clean, perhaps, and wipe our feet at the doors. And maybe some people like to keep their shoes outside their front door as well, rather than take it inside. And is that really so bad? Is that really something that is going to cause injury or damage or be unsafe? In some buildings, I think you can imagine that it wouldn't impact the way that people move around the building. On some floors, perhaps in front of some doors, if there's an alcove, as was mentioned in today's article, an alcove where shoes and mats and scooters can be safely parked, then that would be suitable. What I think this sheet's home to us is that it's so hard for many of us in Strata to see and to appreciate the shades of grey, and perhaps the opportunity sometimes to trial something. Maybe give it a try and see what happens. Often things are banned, practices are banned when there has never been an issue, never been an incident. It just is because that's how it's always been, without anybody questioning the status quo until a situation like this, which is unfortunate. I think that it would end in litigation, as was seen in the Queensland doormat case. David is saying, virtually every commercial building, office, hotel, shopping centre has entry mats. Yeah, it's a really good point, David. And a certain type of mat. So back to my point about there's mats out there, right, that don't flip up and trip up, and commercial mats are probably are indeed a very good example to be having a look at. If people want to have doormats that have the same effect, then I'm sure there are options that are safe. The one size fits all and the ban for the sake of administrative convenience, which our Court of Appeal in New South Wales has said is not on. We shouldn't be banning things for administrative convenience. But it's hard. It's hard to appreciate those shades of grey, and it's easier to have a blanket rule, I think, and that's how we end up in these difficult situations. So David's saying that's the sort of thing to push back on. WH&S statements, just say no. Yeah, if it comes up in the WH&S report. It's difficult. Nanny state was one of the terms used in the article that I just showed you earlier. Is New South Wales a nanny state? That these things are matters of concern. Julie saying, welcome Julie, nice to see you. Entry mats are a safety mat, non-slip, low profile, so low trip hazard. Committee should create a design guide that specifies size, colour and allowed location, similar or equal to XYZ mat. Yep. It sounded pretty reasonable to me, Julie. Definitely. However, that requires some attention, some effort, perhaps, to get that done. Maybe establishing a doormat subcommittee might be the way to go to get that design guide set up. Ian saying, hard to imagine a more petty issue. Yep, I agree. And I want to be careful. I want to bring these issues to you to be careful that you can have a little look. Have a look at your own communities. Have a look at the decisions that you're making as a community, and just make sure you're not going to end up on yahoo.com. That's all I'm saying. All right. Thank you for allowing me to share that one with you. Now, in my email that went out inviting you all to attend Friday Live here today, I gave you a little insight into what I've been working on this week. I have been involved in some tribunal proceedings that were filed on an urgent basis. Those proceedings have happily been resolved. We have reached an agreement between the parties without revealing the details to protect the innocent. I do want to say that one aspect of the dispute was about who is entitled to propose motions for the agenda of a general meeting. Now, this is not the first time that this question has come up. Comes up every now and then, both in cases that I've been involved in litigation and also generally in helping owners to have issues of concern brought to a general meeting. It's a question that I've felt has been recurring, perhaps more often in recent times, in the context of owners saying to me, Amanda, our strata manager drafts our agenda, puts motions on the agenda goes out, we get it, and we say, oh, okay, that's what we're going to be talking about at our general meeting. And I get asked the question, does our strata manager have the authority, the power, the right to be putting motions on the agenda of our general meeting without us, either the committee or owners, asking for that to happen? And an example that I've seen a few times is the strata manager putting forward a motion for the renewal of their contract without first asking the permission of the committee to do that, or indeed letting the committee know that this is coming up so that the committee might have options to go and seek alternate contracts, alternate quotes for management. The other aspect of this question as to who is entitled, has a right to propose motions for a general meeting agenda, is whether the Strata Committee as an entity can propose a motion, can propose motions for the general meeting agenda. And that's a really interesting legal question. It's one that has come up in a case that I was not directly, but connected to last year, and I'll share the details of that case with you. But first of all, I'll take you over to our New South Wales legislation for anybody who is not across the rights of owners to propose motions for general meeting agendas. I just want to make sure that you're aware of relevant provisions of our Strata Schemes Management Act that do indeed entitle you to do that. I will share this. This is, for anybody who is not familiar with what you're looking at right now, this website is AUSTLI, AUSTLII.edu.au. It's where I access the Strata Schemes Management Act. I find this quite a user-friendly spot. And I'm going to scroll right back down to Schedule 1 of our Strata Schemes Management Act. Just occurs to me, actually, as I'm doing that, that if I open up that new tab, it won't share with you. So I'll just head back and fix that for you and share Schedule 1 in a more helpful manner. Let's do that. Okay, this is Schedule 1 to our Strata Schemes Management Act. This has the meeting procedures of owners corporations. This is gold. This is Bible for general meetings, including annual general meetings. If you're looking for meeting procedure, this is where you need to live. It's often where I live. It's where most of my week has been spent this week. Clause 4, the inclusion of matters on an agenda. Any owner or any person entitled to vote at a general meeting of an owners corporation may require a motion to be included on the agenda of the next general meeting. The requirement is made by giving written notice to the secretary, set out the motion, state the name of the person who is requiring the motion, and include an explanation of no more than 300 words. And the secretary must give effect to the requirement. That's so important. If a secretary, a strata manager with the delegated authority as secretary, receives a motion for the agenda of the next general meeting, if it meets these requirements, it's in writing, it has the name of the person, it includes what we call an explanatory note, this explanation of not more than 300 words in length, then it's got to go on the agenda, has to go on the agenda. If, however, the agenda has already gone out, notice has already been given of the meeting, the secretary must include the motion on the agenda for the next meeting. And the person who is requisitioning the motion doesn't have to be financial. They can make a requirement, they can requisition a motion even if they are not financial. So that's where the right, the power, the authority of our owners to put motions on the agenda of general meetings arises. And part of the issue in the case that I was involved in this week was whether the committee could restrict the agenda of a general meeting that was coming up. And I attempted to make the point quite strongly that a committee just doesn't have that power. A committee cannot take away the rights of owners to propose motions for a general meeting. Some comments on this one. I thought, yes, this one might strike a chord with some of you. Jen is saying 3 of us put forward a joint motion and the strata manager would only take direction from one person. We don't think that's fair, is it? Yeah, Jan, I suppose if you, I do that all the time. I often act for groups of owners and I will put together a motion that says, this motion has been proposed by the owners of lots 3, 4, and 5. Here's an explanatory note and here's the motion. I don't see why that is a problem. And if your strata manager was doing that, here's a little insider tip. An approach I often take and recommend to my clients to take is that if somebody's doing something a little bit odd, or you don't think it's legal, or you're not quite sure why they're making that decision, or they're saying that this is the way it is, to write to that person and say, thank you, got your email, appreciate that's your position. Can you please point to the section of the Strata Schemes Management Act or explain the legal basis for that position? So why is it that you say we can't, as 3 owners clearly with rights, in my view, under Clause 4, Schedule 1 of the Strata Schemes Management Act, to propose a motion? Why is it that you won't accept that instruction? And please point us to that part of our strata law that you're relying on in taking that position. So kind of approaching the situation as oh, that's interesting. Haven't come across that before. Would you mind explaining it to me? And sometimes that sends the other person off to go, oh, okay, better have a think about this, better actually go and have a read of Clause 4 and see if I'm actually right, and requires them to do a little bit more deeper thinking about the situation. John is saying we really need a provision in the Act, Schedule 1, that provides for the Secretary to give notice of the cutoff date for owner motions. That is the date of issue of the agenda. If we don't have that, owners can miss the opportunity to get their motions in, or worse still, be excluded deliberately by a strata committee not sharing the date well in advance. Perfectly said, John, and you're exactly right. That is a big problem. When I teach this, when I share with owners, hey, you have this right, it's great, it's all there, you can put motions on the agenda, that is often what is said in response. Amanda, that all works well if we know when the meeting is going to happen. So if I'm working with clients in my legal practice and something really important needs to go on the agenda of the next general meeting, I say, we got to send this motion now. Send it tomorrow. There may not be anything planned. There may not be a meeting scheduled, as far as we're aware, for the next few months, but you never know. So if that motion is with the Secretary, then before the notice is issued, it must go on the agenda. So the minute you have a burning concern that is for the attention of the general meeting, it's not something that can be resolved through the committee or through the strata manager or informally, you know it absolutely has to go on a general meeting agenda, maybe because it's a bylaw and you know that you really want that bylaw to be considered at the next meeting, send it through to the Secretary, to your strata manager ASAP, so that you don't miss that date. Sean is saying, if explanatory notes are up to 300 words, is 0 words valid? Oh, always looking for the angle. Always looking for the angle, Sean. Look, I don't think so. I think the fact that explanatory notes are mentioned in the schedule, that they must be accompanied by an explanatory note. I think your explanatory note has to say something. It could be short. It can be short. It could be as short as a title, repeating the title. This is a motion for a bylaw to give common property rights to lot 2. It's there. Doesn't explain much and may not help your bylaw go through, but I think it does need some notes there. Elizabeth is saying, but my strata manager just chooses not to put my motion. So I suppose that's off to NCAT. Yeah. Motions can be ruled out of order by a chair, perhaps a topic discussion for another day. Motions can be ruled out of order and then they won't be put. But if your motion is with the strata manager, the agenda hasn't gone out, your motion meets the requirements of Clause 4 in Schedule 1, then it should be placed on the agenda. Okay. I'm getting half comments here, so I'm just going to move on from those because I'm not quite sure about those. Sean is saying secretary is not required to consult with anyone on dates nor announce notice issue date, but it's polite to. Yeah, I agree with that, Sean. I'm just pausing because I have a memory. I don't know if it was a member in our community said that they proposed a motion that directed the secretary to inform owners of when meetings were going to happen. Or maybe that was a bylaw. I think they might have even created a bylaw that said then that in our community, we want to be letting people know. We want to make sure that there's a rule in place that requires our secretary to let people know 2 weeks before the agenda goes out, this is the deadline for your motions, creating a bylaw that then implements that into the community. I think that'd be all right. I think that'd be all right. Let's have a think about that one. Amanda's saying, can a strata manager add motions for new bylaws without consultation with the strata committee? Thanks for asking that, Amanda, bringing us back on track to what I wanted to really hit home today. And that is that, in my view, a strata manager has no authority to put any motions on the agenda unless they are instructed to do so. So you've just seen there, I won't take you back over to it, but in Clause 4, it says that owners or persons eligible to vote at a meeting can place motions on the agenda of a general meeting, can issue a request to have a motion on the agenda of a general meeting. Now, that is not a strata manager. Having said that, there are motions that are set out in our legislation, and they're in there in Schedule 1, that are required by law. So we call those statutory motions. They must. When you read Schedule 1, you'll see a list of motions that must go on the agenda of a general meeting. And that's about approving the minutes of the last meeting. At a general meeting, it's about looking at financials and budgets. There are motions that must go on the agenda of every general meeting and every annual general meeting. I don't think that anyone would have any problem with a strata manager automatically putting those onto a draft agenda and then circulating that to the committee and seeking instructions. Are there any more motions? Has any other owner put in a requisition to add a motion? Let's make sure those make it to the agenda. But aside from those statutory motions, in my view, strata managers shouldn't be putting motions on agendas and, in fact, have no legal authority to do so, unless an owner instructs them and gives them that authority to do that on their behalf. Now, this issue did come up in this case, I'm going to share with you, it wasn't in the context of strata managers proposing motions, but it was about the strata committee proposing motions. And the case is called the Owners of Strata Plan 63731 and the Bunker 2021 Appeal Panel case. And I was involved working with the barrister on that case. I wasn't the solicitor on record, but we did put some submissions together to the effect that even a strata committee, actually, when you read the legislation, doesn't have the authority to, off its own bat, propose motions, because Clause 4 in Schedule 1 refers directly to owners. Now, as it turned out in that case, the member who was considering the issue didn't agree. The member said that it's arguable that if the strata committee requires a motion to be placed on the agenda, then they can instruct the strata manager to put that motion on the agenda. And there's nothing wrong with a motion that says it's been proposed by the strata committee rather than any particular owner. That case was only ever considered on an interim basis. There was never a final decision in that case because it was resolved without the intervention of the tribunal. We do have a link to the case. I know there's some NCAT aficionados here who would be interested in reading that. So Rochelle and Christina will post that link in the comments here for you. But Amanda, to answer your question, on a black and white view of the legislation, it is only an owner who's able to requisition a motion. Yes, there are statutory, mandatory motions that must go on general meeting agendas. But query even whether the Strata Committee has authority to instruct that a motion go on an agenda. Look, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be an issue, especially if the Strata Committee meets and resolves that a particular item is going to go on the agenda. Owners have then had notice of that intention. It's in the notice of meeting. It's recorded in the minutes, the committee meeting minutes, which are then circulated to owners. Everyone's had, and if everyone's had the opportunity to submit motions for the agenda, it's probably not going to be controversial that your Strata committee might be proposing motions. But I think it's important to make clear that the motion is proposed by the Strata committee, not any particular owner. And indeed, if you wanted to be absolutely cautious and careful and making sure that you comply with the letter of the law, you would just pick a Strata committee member to put their hand up and say, I will be the owner who proposes this motion. So interesting, have a look at that case. And when that case came out, a couple of you actually emailed me about it with some thoughts on it. So that's why it was front of mind when I was looking at this issue this week. Heading over to some of these comments. Patricia is saying, do you need explanatory notes for mandatory motions at a general meeting? Interestingly, Patricia, explanatory notes are only required where a motion is proposed by an owner. So where it's one of those clause 4 requisitions. There isn't otherwise, unless someone wants to disagree with me, there isn't otherwise a requirement to have explanatory notes for those other statutory motions. There are plenty of agendas that I've seen since this legislation commenced in 2016 that have explanatory notes for all motions. Strata managers, you have your templates that have those explanatory notes for the statutory motions. I think that's a great idea. Some of those statutory motions are a bit weirdly worded and owners don't necessarily understand what they mean, why they're there, what they're supposed to decide, and an explanatory note can be really helpful. Shana saying, we have a complex of 4 and I'm the secretary. I always email everyone and give a cutoff date for motions to be placed on the agenda so I can get it out in time. Love that, Shana. The other thing that is helpful with annual general meetings, and my building does this, is that the minute the committee decides on the date for the annual general meeting, then that is recorded in the minutes of a committee meeting. Our annual general meeting will be held on this date. And if any owners wish to submit motions to be considered at the annual general meeting, please send those to the Strata manager by X date and time. So that's actually recorded in your committee meeting minutes. And if your building is 100 lots or less in New South Wales, committee meeting minutes must be sent to everybody. Every owner gets them. They don't just go on the notice board, they get sent out to everybody. So a good way of letting everyone know, especially when an annual general meeting is due. Julie saying, could you adopt the Queensland process and make it a bylaw? Oh, you might have posted that before I said that, Julie. 21 days before end of financial year, a letter goes out calling for motions and nominations. I think you can. I mean, it wouldn't be contrary to our legislation. That was the only little light bulb that was going off for me. There's nothing in our legislation that says you can't notify owners or you don't have to notify owners. So I like that. So is that in your law in Queensland? You have that in Queensland. We need to catch up, don't we? We really do. David saying, with recalcitrant strata managers, perhaps ensure the agenda item is sent to both the strata manager and the individual named secretary personally with an excerpt of Schedule 1 so they understand they don't have discretion. Registered mail. Yes, that might be in response to Elizabeth's point about not being able to get her motions on the agenda there. Thank you for sharing that, David. No, I had a thought and I lost it. Sean is saying, is that enforceable as any law? Okay, I think I'm delving into conversations here in the chat and I might be missing context, so might come back around to that one. Ordinary person. I don't know if that's your Facebook name or that's a StreamYard pseudonym that has come up there. Ordinary person says, do you have to put in approval of previous minutes in a Strata committee meeting? Unlike ordinary person, unlike general meetings, we don't have statutory motions that must go on Strata committee meetings. I don't think. I'll go and check that for you, but I'm pretty sure Schedule 2 is where we have our regulations, our rules, our law for Strata committee meetings. And I don't think there's anything mandated for an agenda for a Strata committee meeting, unlike our general meetings that do say you have to approve the minutes of the last meeting. One of the Strata managers here will tell me if I'm wrong. Of course, though, it is a standard motion that I do see that goes on to Strata committee meetings, and I do recommend it. Approve the minutes of the last meeting. I'll go and have a look at Schedule 2, and perhaps we can post a link to it here as well to make sure everyone has access to those rules about Strata committee meetings and how they operate as distinct from general meetings. Interesting point, Strata committee meeting, owners can't requisition motions. Owners can't put motions on the agenda of Strata committee meetings. That only applies to general meetings. All right, great chat. Just scrolling down to make sure if I have some corrections or any other comments here. Thank you from Patricia. Thank you, Patricia. Okay. Sean is saying minutes confirmation is a good meeting procedural motion. Yep, indeed. All righty. Oh my gosh, what a chat we've had. I haven't stopped and an hour has passed on by. So good to be spending this afternoon with you. I'm going to go, first of all, have a drink of water and then maybe have a little something stronger for a Friday afternoon as I ease in to the weekend and the school holidays. Such an enlightening, engaging conversation we have here always on a Friday. I know there are questions I don't get to. There are comments I don't get to. There are many of you I know tuning in the background who don't post in the comments. I am so pleased that you are here and you're tuning in and that you are learning. The place where we can have deeper conversations, where we can have one-on-one conversations and video chats and go deeper on your Strata issues is inside our online membership community. And there's a few new members that we've had in the recent week or couple of weeks or so that I haven't welcomed in yet. And I do want to acknowledge them, some new members to our online community. I want to say hi and welcome to Svetlana and Gregory and Sewell and James. Welcome, welcome. They have all joined us on the inside within the last week or so. And I want to make sure that you know the place to go. We get a few Facebook messages often after Friday Live saying, Amanda, I heard you talk about members and I heard you talk about online community. How do we get involved in that? You want to head over to stratamembership.com. That's where we have our Q&A forum where I'm able to answer your questions in writing, give you links to resources, have a bit more of a back and forth so I can get to the nub of your issue, and you're also able to book a one-on-one member call with me. So many members tune in on a Friday afternoon. I love spending this time with you and I enjoy seeing you inside our online community as well. So that's a wrap. That is a wrap on another fabulous Friday Live. Thank you for joining me. And next week, yes. Next week, yes. School holidays, but I think we will be scheduling an Ask Amanda Now. Not sure where I'm going to be, what state I'm going to be in after 5 days of school holidays, but let's do an Ask Amanda Now and we'll have a quick chat next Friday. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. I'll catch you next time.